Good afternoon and welcome to everyone to the 865th Transport and Infrastructure Committee meeting. I'd like to welcome all committee members. We will have an apologies, but also we've got Councillor Curtis and Councillor Fowler here, so welcome aboard. Attendance apologies. Councillor Hamel is making an apology, so I'm going to move it. Do we have a seconder? He's apparently got an appointment up in Brisbane. Councillor Tozer, all in favour? Carry. Leave of absent, nil. Confirmation of minutes. The 864 Transport and Infrastructure Committee meeting. I have a mover, Councillor Tozer. Have a seconder, Councillor Gates. There's any changes or any clarification? No. Put the motion to all in favour. Carry. Any conflict of interests? Nil. So we've got currently two starred items, 5.1 and 6.1. Would anyone like to unstar or star any of the others? So Councillor Gates, unstar 6.1. That's okay, we can hold. So we've got starred 5.1 and 6.1 at the moment. Did we want to unstar either? No? Okay. So do I have a move for the two starred items, which Councillor Tozer, Councillor Young? Any questions? Put the motion to you. All in favour? Carry. Well done. 6.2, expanding the council cab service. So we've got a presentation here, Michael. So I think we've got Dan McNaughton and Nick Prasser. Okay, we don't have a presentation for 6.2, but we've got Dan here and Nick for any questions. So, do we have any questions for 6.2? Councillor Tozer.
Yeah, I was just interested because obviously initially we resolved to take a look at Willowvale, and I'm on page 30 and looking at the different, assessments of different suburbs nearby. I was a little bit surprised that Benogan didn't reach the threshold, given that it had medium demand as opposed to Willowvale having low demand, and it had 1,000 eligible residents as opposed to Willowvale having 397. And it said low serviceability when I don't know where Willowvale quite is, but Benogan's only 10 minutes from Robina, and it felt like a strange thing. So maybe you could talk to that a little bit for us, Daniel.
Through the chair, yes, Councillor. So the main difference between Benogan and Willowvale was the average trip distance. So whilst it might not seem like much, the 2 kilometres as shown on the table, it's a 33% difference in travel time and distance for our operator. And so when we spoke with them about that, it did prove to be too challenging, and that distance meant that we didn't recommend it for that reason. Correct.
That's like short to park on.
Yep, through the chair, and that's one way as well. So as a driver doing that trip several times in a day, it does increase quite significantly as well. So
help me just clarify again. The council cab service, my understanding is it's not an everyday service. It's like a 1 day a week allocation of even at distinct times. Is that right?
Through the chair, correct.
Right. So when you say back and forth multiple times, what do you mean by that?
So through the chair, there would be different residents that, say, live in that suburb that are eligible to take. There'd be a number of different residents using the service on the same day. So a driver would be doing that trip several times for different residents or customers in that day. So that 2 kilometre compounds and is more significant than just what it looks like there on the paper is just 2 kilometres in one situation. Can I add as well, so what we are looking to recommend as well is the inclusion of an incentive clause with a future contract. So the idea of that is if we have special case scenarios that come up, we have an opportunity to go to our operator and say, look, this person might live at the edge of Bonogan. It's only quite a short trip. Would you be willing to consider accepting them to be a customer for this service? So we're trying to acknowledge that there might be some special case scenarios that we could consider. However, if that same person but lived 15 kilometres away, then it's unlikely that that would be achievable. But we are trying to include like a special case situation to cover some situations that might occur.
So just so I can get clear through the chair what's happening today, am I right in saying that the service provider of the council cab service told us that 2 to 2.5 kilometres was too much for them to service? It wasn't actually our recommendation, but that's what they said to us.
So, through the chair, Dan, help me if I haven't got this exactly right. But one of the things was that we were trying to talk to the providers around where they thought they could guarantee that drivers would take the jobs. The further out we got, the less likely they were that they were actually providing the guarantee that the drivers would take the jobs. So, while we want them to take the jobs, they're not obliged to take any of the jobs under this program. Have I got that correct, Dan?
Through the chair, yes, correct. So, and what I'll add is, yes, we spoke with our provider about this idea and this concept, but that was as part of a broader process. So on page 28 of the report, it details the full investigation process that we went through to reach the recommendations that we're providing here today. So I won't go into all the detail around it, but talking to our provider was essentially one of the last steps in the process after we had done a detailed investigation that looked at demographics in the area, it looked at travel distances, it looked at existing shopping centre locations, many other things. We then did that analysis, we came up with our own ideas and recommendations, and then we confirmed that with our operator, discussed that with them and received their feedback and their views on it as well. So that formed part of this.
So just a question again through the chair. Does Willowvale have any Translink bus services whatsoever?
Through the chair, off the top of my head, I'm not aware. It would be maybe on the fringe, but I don't think it would. Yeah.
In any way, part of Willowvale is within the urban footprint. It abuts Upper Coomera and Pimpamar, and I don't know how many dwellings are on small lot, high density location along Waverley Drive, but there's a divine development along there. I'm grateful for this report because it came about through queries to my office about the inclusion of Willowvale because it's so close.
I wouldn't want to, I'm not fighting against Willowvale being included either. I'm just trying to get in my head.
The bus service is adjacent, but in my understanding does not go into the rural residential part of Willowvale.
Through the chair, Councillor Tozer, we can provide you with a map of where it is and what's the frequency those bus services are, so you get that understanding.
I think the reason I mention it is because Bonogan, with 1,000 eligible residents, doesn't have any bus services, nor does Western Mudgeeraba. And so the council cab service, in getting this report, I'd hoped that, and I probably assumed that going through the data, we'd actually recommend that Bonogan be included. Just, one day a week, allowing an older citizen to be able to get in there when there's no other public transport options available to them. I actually thought Bonogan would come up more, and I'm familiar enough with Willowvale to know that there's some high density kind of areas and some housing that might be occupied by the lower socioeconomic, but there's also a rural residential area which is quite similar. But I did think that there was bus service to or near Willowvale, whereas there's nothing at all in Bonogan. So this resolution or the proposed recommendation effectively writes off until the next cycle any opportunity for someone from Bonogan to get it. And for the sake of the 2 kilometres, I'm actually, I feel pretty strong convictions. It would be great to get that report before full council so I can potentially argue my case at full council, but I'm really surprised that Bonogan isn't included. And I'm not arguing that Willowvale shouldn't be either. I think it's actually really important. But in places where we don't have where the state is unwilling to provide us a bus service, some of our older citizens really do need an option to be able to get to the shops, and this is a great subsidised way for them to do so.
And
Once
was that a consideration when we evaluated the list of where the current bus service is?
Through the chair, no, we didn't factor in public transport because that's a different model, and what we find is people using the council cab service aren't typically using bus services because they're going to a shopping centre to do their groceries, which is a challenge for them to do via public transport.
Yeah. Am I right in saying, just so we're clear, because we're in open session, the council cab service provides at what fee does the council cab service operate? How much does a person pay to use the council cab service?
Through the chair, one-way trip is $2 for the customer.
Yeah, so the customer pays $2 as part of the council cab service, and the service itself is offered on a fixed day of the week for anyone on that day can go back and forth. Do you know what days they already visit Mudgeeraba?
Through the chair, we can check that and get back to you. It's on our website, so I don't have that in front of me, sorry, but I can easily find that, yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to give some thought to this while there's any other questions.
Yep. Councillor Young.
Thanks, Chair. I had the opportunity to meet with the officers and I'm really grateful for that. I posed a lot of questions and got a lot of clarity. My question now is, can someone tell me what the budget is for this entire item or service delivery per annum, please? Yep.
So through the chair, it fluctuates because it obviously depends on the number of trips that are taken across a full year. So approximately 120,000.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Do you have a
isn't-
mover of the item?
Can I change the recommendation, please, Chair?
Councillor Gates, do you want to? Have to move it? Do you want? Are you happy to hear? I'm happy to listen to what you're thinking.
I just, at the moment, basically the recommendation that's been put towards is that we don't support the expansion of the service with the current contract. And it says that council supports the city administration's intent to enter into a new contract. And my hope is that committee members might support me in including Bonogan as well as Willowvale in item 4 of the resolution. And so council supports the city administration's intent to expand the service area to include Willowvale and Bonogan and include a clause allowing special consideration. That's all I wanted. I can speak to it but also I'm happy to move it as an amendment and see how I go.
Can I just ask a question? What a cost would be and what the implications would be, obviously, with the current provider as well, considering any of the other
Yep. So through the chair, the biggest challenge we have with places like Bonogan is that it's a higher risk for the city to be able to service an area like that. So we require a taxi operator our taxi driver has to accept a trip to Bonogan, so they have to be willing to drive out of their way because it's typically in a remote area where they're not going to be getting a trip along the way, or once they're out there, they drop someone off, there isn't another trip for them to do. So the biggest challenge we have is convincing those drivers that this is a trip that they should take to that area, which is why it is a big challenge for us to service our western areas. We have had challenges like that in the past. So the risk for the city is that we will put Bonogan into this service and we have to then accept registrations. So we say to someone, you're now able to use the council cab service on a Wednesday, but we're then not guaranteed that we can actually service that person on a regular basis with a driver unless that a driver is willing to do that. And the way to do that is via offering more money to them to do that. So there is a risk, or there is a chance that we would have to pay more. As we've talked about the current cost, so it would probably be an increase to that if we can service the area. So if a driver is willing to do the trip still as well.
So just do you mind if I respond to that? Yeah. So just in response to that, within 6 minutes of Bonogan is 5 of the largest private schools who have cabs every morning. At every morning of the week, there are cabs dropping kids off to school. I know that sounds strange, but in private school world, that is something that happens in our world. And from the edge of the existing service area, it is less than 3 minutes to the end of Benogan Road from the existing boundary we have. So I appreciate it's 8 minutes to Robina, 8 minutes to Mudgebar Town Centre and 8.5 minutes to Robina, according to the report. But it is 3 minutes, less than 3 minutes, I would say, from the edge of our current boundary to the very end of Benogan. The suggestion that a cab driver wouldn't think of that being suitable any more than they would Western Mudgebar, I think is ridiculous, particularly since we do have so many cabs operating, particularly in the mornings, around the private schools. And it occurs to me this service is most likely to be used between the hours of probably 9 and 11 on a weekday, which is a school day, and there's lots of reason why it could make sense. So I appreciate with some of the more isolated ones, and I appreciate even the last Transport Committee, we talked about Springbrook and coming up with some, alternatives to public transport or even getting public transport to Springbrook. I get that that's much too far for this service, but Benogan seems to be not too far, and particularly with the capacity to improve services in an area where it already doesn't have public transport. This is a great low-hanging fruit. I'd even be happy just for a 12-month trial. But
So could I just ask a question? If we did add one such as Benogan, the impact of the budget from your perspective would be minimal, or what's...
Through the chair. So the next step in the process for this service is to go through a procurement process. So we would ask the market to let us know about that. We're talking about the addition of 2 new suburbs, which in the context of the whole service area isn't significant. The issue will be the travel distance and whether or not that's reflective of the current travel distance that they're typically doing. So I'd expect it to be more. Will it be significantly more? Potentially not.
But through that procurement process, we can still evaluate appropriately and consider it at that point. Obviously, it'll go out to tender, obviously with 2 proponents, and then obviously based on the information we come back, would that come back to council or would that be delegated? Michael?
That wouldn't come back to council. It wouldn't, in my view.
Can I ask a question? Is recently the council struck an agreement with Uber? Could Uber bid for this work? Are they excluded from bidding for this work?
Through the chair, good question. Someone asked me this earlier today, so I'm glad they did. I've had to think about it now. For the last tender process that we went through, we did factor in whether or not, we basically set up the process so that Uber did have the opportunity to go for this contract. It isn't the right sort of contract for a service such as that, because a key requirement is that you need to be able to call up. We're talking about elderly people that aren't necessarily on an app like Uber, so they need the opportunity to be able to call a direct number, book a service, talk to a person. So it doesn't really fit with that model, but that doesn't mean they couldn't.
They could set it up, but it's unlikely because they don't have a call centre number, whereas the cab services do have a call centre number. Got it. Cool.
Correct.
Thank you.
So look, if you're happy, I mean you're a mover, but
I'm not moving it. I appreciate the motions on the table.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm happy to move it because I just spoke to Michael and he indicated that there was any concerns or problems, it will come back to council at that time. So it's financial. So I will go to Peter. Have you got any questions, Peter?
So I wasn't sure if this is the motion that we're debating or whatever.
No, we haven't gone to debate. We haven't got a mover or seconder at the moment. So basically, do we have a mover for this one? So, Councillor Tozer, you want to...
I would like to move it, but I'm also happy, if Councillor Gates is happy to move it with that change, I'm happy to second her motion if she's willing to adjust.
So I'll go. Councillor, would you like to move it? Councillor Gates, happy to move it.
I'll second
to Councillor Tozer.
Well, I'll move an amendment then. This is where my question was going. Why would I support that and not say and Mount Nathan as well? For the very same reasons. And so I would have been reluctant to do it of its own, Chair, but given we've got that as the motion, contrary to the council officer's advice, I'd like to add Mount Nathan because I think it's going to have very little impact on council's budget. It's going to have very little impact on the operation of the service and in terms of numbers, but for those people in that area, it will
Can I
make
ask
a difference.
question?
I'm happy to go question first, and then did you have a question, Councillor Gates?
Yeah, look, my only concern, I want everyone to
Yep.
have a piece of the pie if they think there is demand in their areas. And the reason this came forward was because of a number of calls to my office. So there was a bit of a groundswell at one point about why Willowvale wasn't included. But my worry about introducing areas that have not been identified is the work that the officers have done,
Yep.
which is potentially reputationally damaging if we can't provide the service. Now, I've got no idea whether the taxis are going to want to go to Mount Nathan, Willowvale or Benogan, but I guess that's been the basis of your considerations, that there will be reputational damage if we make the service available and then there is difficulty fulfilling that service. So that's the only negative that I have about the inclusion.
Yeah. So, Michael, just want to be clear, the intent of this is there's agreement coming up, so we want to extend the current contract with no changes so that the procurement process can go through, that could come back at some point anyway. So I think it's,
No change to the current contract in the motion on the
correct,
table.
no contract change. So the intent is, at the moment, I'll hand it over to Dan and you might better clarify that.
Yeah, through the chair. So the current contract is finishing soon. So we're not recommending a change to the current contract because of how it, by the time we did that change, it would just about be done. So what we're suggesting is that as part of the new contract, the next contract that we enter into, that these changes be considered.
So can I ask my question?
Yes.
So my question through you to Councillor Young. Councillor Young, I just note on page 30, you've got the distances between the different locations. And the reason I was pretty strongly, wanted to advocate for Benogan is because at 8 and 8.5 kilometres, it's not, it's effectively a 25-30% difference from the cities in there. Is it possible that you would consider Mount Nathan to My Centre Narang, but not to Westfield Helensvale? Because it's double the distance.
Yeah, sure. I would imagine that's where people would go anyway.
My Centre Narang? Yeah. So keeping that in mind, I don't think we necessarily need to move the, I don't know if you want to take amendment. I don't know if Councillor Gates would be happy to change it, but the idea that it's 8.9 kilometres to My Centre Narang from Mount Nathan, I think seems fair and reasonable based on the arguments put for Benogan. But I would want to have Westfield Helensvale excluded because it's double that distance, almost double that distance. And I can also imagine the cost to the city of a 15 kilometre or 14.8 kilometre trip versus an 8.9 kilometre trip is probably double.
I'm just going to ask a question. We're talking about Mount Nathan, possibly of adding a slight change. Is there anyone else before I go any further? Because we don't want to end up in a bidding war. Okay, but my question is, there's no one else that's going to start because I just don't want a bidding war.
No, but assuming I will second Councillor Young's amendment. No, I don't think I'm allowed to. Under the meeting rules, I'm not allowed to second it.
Don't you?
Okay, I need guidance in
because I seconded
protocol.
the mover and the seconder of the original motion can't participate in the amendment's mover.
So at the moment, we've got Benogan and Mount Nathan. That's the current.
Look, I never suggested that I would. I did agree to including Benogan, but I would rather withdraw my motion completely with the permission of the council and let you guys sort it out.
So
I really feel that the clause that was to be included in the next contract, which says that there's a clause allowing special consideration for residents outside the service area, that should have been sufficient given the circumstances, that would allow anyone from any area not included to put their case and potentially be accepted. So, I mean...
Councillor Young, where were you suggesting?
No, Nathan.
Mount Nathan.
Yeah, so I'm happy to move Nathan, I think.
And I'll
Councillor
second it,
Craig will
assuming you're willing
So,
to take the other motion off the
Just
table.
protocol, right? Are
Yeah.
we able to just withdrawn
Yep.
and that change? So I'm happy to accept that.
Thanks, Chair.
So we need to change.
So it will need to be. It would need to be noted in the meeting minutes because it's all on the public record.
Yeah,
That
so I
the,
just
that the
protocol.
motion was withdrawn with the permission of the chair.
Yep.
Councillor Gates's motion was withdrawn with the permission of the chair. Otherwise, we'll get ourselves in.
Yep. I just want to make sure the protocol's followed.
And the motion that was withdrawn was the Willow Vale Benogan one that didn't include Mount Nathan. Yeah.
I guess we can look forward to.
Like 6 kilometres is so few. Like it's so little. 8 kilometres, you know. It's like a $12 fare.
So while that's being finalised, just to be clear, this will come back to council. It won't come back to council. You'll make a delegated decision at the time. So I just want to be clear
Through the chair, this would not come back to council, but if there was some issue with meeting the service level or there was an extreme cost to the council to provide that service, I would bring the report back.
Yeah,
But if value for money and service levels can be met, it's within delegation of officers, and we wouldn't come back.
perfect. So yeah, if they're concerned, we've got that opportunity. Yep. Okay, we clear on what's up there at the moment? You want to open, Councillor
Thanks,
Young?
Chair. Yeah, I was pretty comfortable with the officer's recommendation originally. I think that the operators get a set fee for the provision of the service, and to my mind, it's really wrong that we compare provision of a service, let's say, to someone needing it in Ashmore, who lives in Ashmore and can get to the shopping centre on their mobility scooter on perfectly formed footpaths and across roads with traffic light signals and all that sort of stuff, whereas someone who's in Mount Nathan, for example, can't. They don't have that facility, so they're reliant upon some kind of service, which we've put a geographic limit to, understandably. But I think that in those conversations that prevail from here, there should be discussion about the potential offering of a higher rate of fee to the service provider for those that are outside the geographical area. It just makes sense. It's going to make it more attractive to a taxi driver to go to Mount Nathan or Benogan or some other place if they know they're going to get more money, compared with if they just stuck around Ashmore, they're going to get the same amount of money and it's a quicker service for them, quicker trip, quicker job. So I took some comfort from the fact that there are going to be these further discussions, and I believe that ultimately we're dealing with a pretty low expenditure from the city's budget overall that provides service to not a huge number of people, but it's there available if people want to take advantage of it. And I think that's a really good service. So I'm very happy to support it and encourage it. Thanks, Chairman.
Yeah, look, I just thank committee members for listening to my argument in relation to including Benogan, and also to the officers. They did a great job of assessing these matters, but I do feel like the amount of potential people in Benogan that could benefit from this one day a week service, that when no other public transport options are available to these people, I think there's a number of senior citizens who live in that area and have lived there for perhaps decades and just haven't ever moved, that would really benefit from this, and that'll be in this current situation, I think it will be a low cost to council for a service that is actually important and valued by ratepayers. Cheers.
Councillor Gates, did you want to speak?
Could I just, before you close debate, if I could ask a question? Is it possible for us to get an understanding of how many services have been provided in the last... I didn't see it.
You're talking through the chair, sorry, number of trips?
Yeah.
So there is a section in the report, I think it's...
Thank you.
Yeah, 27.
That's quite significant. Well, I would like to just contribute and thank the officers for the work that they've done as a result of requests for this service, and there'll be certainly people at Willowvale who are appreciative of the change. And I also wanted to just highlight the additional clause that has been mentioned, and thank you for your consideration in that regard for people who might not be in a suburb that is suitable to extend the service to. So thanks to the officers.
Okay, we'll put the motion to you. All in favour? Against? Carry. Thank you, Dan. So the next one's in closed session. So subject to pursuant of section 254J1(2), the local government regulations 2012, this report may be considered in closed session pursuant to section 254J3, the Local Government Act, for the reason the matter is a local government budget. So do I have a mover to go into close? Councillor Dozer, second to Councillor Gates, all in favour? Carry. Streaming off. Happy to open. We've got a confidential item at the moment, Bruce Bishop Carpark. We all know that over a long period of time there's been a lot of structural problems with the actual Bruce Bishop that we've been working through. There was an incident at one point on top. We've currently got the Town Hall live music hall going to be started or under construction, and this item comes to us to look at what those options are for the Bruce Bishop, to consider the options of the car park and how that will interlink with the actual live music stadium. I think the thing for myself is it's a public asset that the council resolved to keep, and what we've been doing is activate in an appropriate manner moving forward. So this item hopefully will get approval, and looks forward to more improvements. So anyone want to talk for the motion? Anyone against? I'll put the motion to you. All in favour? Against? Carry. Thank you, Ross. Thank you, team. Any general business? I'm not aware of any general business, so closed meeting 14:12. Thank you.